Hi, I'm Chiana and welcome to episode 3 of the Co-Presents on Knowing Humans Better. And these are my lovely guests.
My name is Samia and I'm a climate justice activist. I'm the co-founder of Seize the Vote, which is basically a collective made for Black and brown people in the UK to be more politically empowered, but also show them avenues on how to be politically engaged in the UK political context. And yeah, I'm just a campaigner who's always everywhere and doing too many things.
Doesn't sound like you're just anything. Sounds amazing. My name's Anne Stagg. I'm CEO for Merkle in the UK, part of dentsu.
Fabulous, thank you. Thank you for being here. So, what does it mean to know humans better? We'll start with you, Anne.
I mean, for me, it's about making sure that we use the data and the behavioural information that we've got on how consumers and customers are engaging with brands to really make sure we help those brands deliver personalised, creative and seamless experiences across every touch point in the customer journey, whether that's marketing, sales, service or commerce. And it's really making sure that consumers engage with brands in a really meaningful way.
And how about you, Samia?
So yeah, with us, like as a grassroots organisation, it's just important to set physical spaces where we actually get to talk to people and actually hear what their needs and wants are. So in order to get people politically empowered, you kind of need to know where they are. And by having conversations, you understand like people care about a range of issues. So people care about like food security, energy security, like the cost of living. And through that, you just learn the actual priorities that people actually care about rather than making assumptions. So for me, getting to know humans better is just having real authentic conversations with them rather than being superficial and basically assuming what they need. And yeah,
I completely agree with you. I think personalisation's a really key aspect. So how do you identify new trends and behaviours?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say like identifying trends. One way is like social media listening, so see what people are talking about across like Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Now that I'm more experienced with this, I actually use things like Hootsuite or CrowdTangle, which are great apps to see what the common like trendy discussions are happening. So for example, like last year we saw lots of people talk about Insert Britain because, you know, they were on the streets in London protesting against the rise of like energy prices, and you saw like people had like lots of controversial opinions on that. And as Seize the Vote, we look at that and we're like, okay, that's what everyone's talking about. So how do we use that to get people into the spaces that we create? So an example of us doing that successfully was when we saw the Nike brand talk about the Black Lives Matter movement. And they basically integrated that into their like brand and products. And we said, oh, let's actually talk about this because people seem to be angry about it. And I remember when we hosted a physical space, we filled the room, people had lots to say to a point that the event ran over for like 2 hours. So people are out there, they're thinking, they're talking, but you actually just need to set up the space to engage in that and take advantage of the moments that come up rather than being in the planning room and just thinking, oh, what are people thinking about? Like actually just go out there and meet them in the moment. So that's important.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
And we have strategists across our business that look at the new and emerging trends so that when we're working with brands, we can talk about how we deliver the next best experience for customers and really get ahead of those new and emerging trends. And also looking real time at those personalizations and behaviors to really tailor content so that it is relevant to what people are looking for. And obviously putting the data at the heart of what we do so that it's really meaningful and enabled through technology. So from a consumer's perspective, it's just seamless and easy to engage with a brand. I think people are really choosing their mission and engaging with brands that stand for something that's important to them. So there's lots of information around how we can do that more effectively.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I know you've already touched on this briefly, but as a change maker, how do you engage with your community?
So yeah, like I'm the type of person where I come across like so many companies saying, oh, we want to diversify ourselves, we want to like reach diverse audiences. How do we do this? And they always make it seem like it's a complex issue. Like they make it seem like it's rocket science. But honestly, just talking to people, I feel like talking to people is so underrated when it comes to change making. Because I come across so many people in activism and they're like, oh, I care about this issue, I want to be a pioneer in this. And I actually asked them, did you actually talk to the people that you're fighting for? So for instance, like if you're fighting for like social justice issues, the people you're fighting for, did you actually go into the community and talk to them and see what they need? And how are you setting up safe spaces for them to be heard authentically, but also productively as well? Because there's one thing where you set up physical spaces for discussions to happen, but then it's another thing where you need to action after those discussions, and that's how you create impact. So setting physical spaces is important to me just because I want the communities I serve to feel safe and heard. Another thing is like, people don't have time these days to always be doing change-making activities. So one thing we've done at Seize the Vote, we're still doing it actually, is creating resources so people can access power in their own time, rather than forcing them to do it ASAP, like right now. So we build like templates on how to like write to your MP, like how to go to a council meeting and have an effective discussion with decision makers. So it's all about just being there for the community and serving their needs.
I think that's really interesting. I think it's really key that like you're moving with the changing trends and times as well. Like as you said, more people are wanting to do stuff sort of in their own time.
Exactly.
And I think that's a really important thing, that you're still actually managing to get that across to people, and that people can still help out and do what they want to do, but just when it suits them. I think that's really important. So Anne, how has dentsu used data and insights to create campaigns, and what have been some of your favourites?
I think we work with a lot of organisations who really change how they're set up to respond to consumer needs. I mean, the digital transformation that we've seen in the last 2 years and the pace of change through COVID was just phenomenal. So to move from being maybe an organisation that's sort of product-centric or even channel-centric, so, you know, the digital team or the retail team or what have you, it's required a real organisational change to move to putting the customer at the heart of their business and to setting themselves up around what the customers really want to see, so that we can deliver on that total customer experience that we want to. And that's not just about making sure that they have the enabled tools and technologies and data, but that they can drive value from that data and that they organise themselves as a business around what the consumer wants. We've done some phenomenal work over the last few years. If I look at the work that we did for Currys during COVID, really operating as part of their business continuity. You know, the high street shut down. They moved to being a digital business in weeks, not months or years. And you know, we were really at the heart of helping them do that. And you know, that's really an important role for us to play, helping Sky activate on digital content, helping Hilton Hotels connect through new audiences, through TikTok. You know, there's some amazing new emerging media channels, but really all of this needs to be digitally enabled so that it can be real time and personalised in a way that matters to people. And I think also as a business, creating and orchestrating content so that we can get the right messages and those missions that people are really looking for, to connect with brands that are being a force for good and doing great work. You mentioned the Nike campaign is a great example. You know, you actually need to be able to get that content out there, and we're really at the heart of enabling that through technology. So yeah, I'm very proud of the work that we do.
I think the overlap as well between the two, even though it's like such different things that both of you focus on, there is such an overlap, and I think technology has got such a massive part to play in that. So what's your message to ambitious brands that want to stay ahead of competitors? We'll start with you, Anne.
Well, I think change what you measure and use measurement as a catalyst for change. You know, it's no good measuring how many people opened an email or opened a text message. It's really about understanding, am I building a more loyal customer base? Am I driving that engagement at a brand level that I need to foster long-term loyalty? Are my sustainability initiatives really landing with customers in a way that matters? So looking at how brands can change what they measure, really starting with the end in mind and then working back, you know, what is it that the customer wants to experience and how do we then enable that? I think the pace of change is so radical at the moment that it really is about thinking about how those organisations can adapt to build those meaningful connections with consumers.
And yeah, you're right, like the change is radical and companies need to be more radical in their approaches. So I've seen brands poorly attempt to diversify their campaigns and their image. And I've heard so many horror stories of like campaigners felt that they were tokenized for campaigns. So yeah, my advice to brands out there and companies is to not just do things on a tick box exercise, like actually authentically connect with different audiences and not make their issues or their identity a commodity. It's important to authentically build relationships and actually listen from a place where you're open to learning rather than coming in as a company and say, oh, hey, like we want you to do this, we want you to do that. Like actually listen, because you can actually learn a lot from who you're engaging with. And yeah, I've seen like campaigns thrive because of that, because you know that they're empowering those voices that are marginalized and tend to be unheard in the mainstream. So if you want to get ahead of the game, just be real. Like, don't be fake, don't be superficial, just like be a human person. Like whenever I talk about like diversity, equity and inclusion, I'm always shocked when people say it's like difficult for them to do that type of work. It's like, it's actually not hard. Like you're just treating another human being as a human being. Like treat people as if they're part of your community. And what we see on social media is people looking for authenticity. So people, especially young people, we can smell when a campaign is fake. We can tell when you just picked up this person because they're like Black or they're Muslim. Like we can tell when your efforts are just basically bandwagoning. So yeah, just be real, like make sure people's voices are actually being heard and make sure the processes behind the scenes are equitable as well. So when you bring people in, make sure that they're being compensated, paid for, being taken well care of, rather than just sticking their face on a billboard or an ad. Like there needs to be more work to be done if you truly want to be inclusive. And that's what people want. People want to align themselves to brands that match their values. So yeah, if you just be real and human, then you can go real far.
I think that authenticity is so important, isn't it? I think to have a really authentic culture, you have to have a diverse culture within your organisation that is reflective of the communities that we are working with and living in. And I think it means we are talking about issues that historically we would have never spoken about so openly. And I think that's really important, whether it's LGBTQ+, whether it's gender, whether it's race and ethnicity. These need to be conversations that we can have, and it helps us really recruit and attract the very best diverse talent in the marketplace. And that is, I think, how we can start to have a more authentic conversation and a more authentic engagement with consumers as well.
Agreed, and it's so good that you're really aware around this, because it shows that you're ahead of the game. Some companies fail to get to that conversation because they're afraid of making mistakes, having slip-ups, and I've been in so many like consultation rooms where companies are like, oh, but if I do this, will we get backlash? Like they're always like teetering, and then they end up taking no action, which hurts them in the long run. Yeah.
And I think with the very best of intentions, there's going to be things that as an individual, as a team, you're not going to get everything right. Exactly. But I think as long as people see that you're trying with the very best of intentions, then progress has got to come.
Yeah. I think that's so important. I think as long as you can be seen to be trying and actually seen to be wanting to make that change, I think it all starts with conversation. And I think it's so important to have those conversations and to open up those doors. just even to be seen, to be giving it a go, otherwise we're never going to make any change. Thank you for watching part 1, stay tuned for part 2.